What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another brand new installment of Renegades Reviews, exclusively here, as always, on the Casa D18 Studios channel. I, of course, am your host, the Renegade J.J. Williams, and we return to the Frankenstein story today with The Ghost of Frankenstein, starring Lon Chaney Jr., Sir Cedric Hardwicke, Ralph Bellamy, Lionel Atwill, Bela Lugosi, Evelyn Ankers, and Dwight Fry. What's going on, everybody? Thank you for joining me here once again for another brand new installment of Renegades Reviews. And like I said during the introduction, today we return to the Frankenstein story with the Ghost of Frankenstein. And this is the first one since Boris Karloff left to feature a new actor in the role of the monster. And of course, it is the man who we're going to be discussing in some form over the next many days, Lon Chaney Jr. taking over as the monster this time. And as our movie opens, the residents of the village of Frankenstein feel that they are under a curse, and they blame all of their troubles on Frankenstein's monster. The mayor of the village gives the villagers permission to destroy Frankenstein's castle. Igor finds the monster, and it is released from its sulfuric tomb by the explosions of the villagers trying to attack the castle. The exposure to the sulfur weakened yet preserved the monster. So Igor and the monster flee the castle, and the monster ends up getting struck by a bolt of lightning. Igor decides to track down Ludwig, the second son of Henry Frankenstein, in order to help the monster regain his strength. So again, we're not really sure how far after the last film this takes place, or after Bride of Frankenstein, because we have to figure that Bride of Frankenstein, Henry was marrying Elizabeth. And by the time we got to Son, Henry was dead, and now he's apparently got two sons. So, not really sure about the timeline there, but just roll with it. Now, Ludwig Frankenstein is a doctor who, along with his assistants, Dr. Kettering and Dr. Theodore Baumer, has a successful practice in the town of Visaria. Now, Dr. Baumer used to be Ludwig's teacher, but now he's his envious assistant. Igor and the monster arrive in Visaria, where the monster befriends a young girl, Clostine Hussman. After the monster watches the young girl get bullied by some young boys, she asks the monster to help her get her ball, which they had kicked onto a rooftop. The monster carries her to the rooftop to help her retrieve the ball, killing two villagers in the process who attempt to intervene. Once they retrieve the ball, Clostine asks the monster to bring her back down. So the monster returns the girl to her father, Herr Hussman, and despite having been promised that no harm would come to the monster is immediately captured and taken down by the police. The town prosecutor, Erich Ernst, comes to Ludwig and asks him to examine the giant that they have just captured. Igor then visits Ludwig and informs him that the giant is in fact a monster. Igor implores Ludwig to heal the monster's body and brain, but Ludwig refuses. But Igor threatens to reveal Ludwig's ancestry to the villagers if he doesn't comply. At the police station, the monster is restrained with chains as a hearing is conducted in order to investigate the murder of the villagers. When Ludwig denies recognizing the monster, it breaks free in a fit of rage and is led away by Igor. Elsa, who is Ludwig's daughter, finds the Frankenstein journals and learns the story of the monster. She sees Igor and the monster in the window, and after breaking into Ludwig's laboratory, the monster kills Dr. Kettering. The monster then grabs Elsa, but Ludwig is able to subdue him with knockout gas. Ludwig attempts to examine the monster, but when it awakens, it tries to kill him. Ludwig then tranquilizes the monster and tries to enlist Dr. Bommer's aid in dissecting him. Bommer refuses, claiming it would be murder. While studying the family's journals, Ludwig is visited by the ghost of his father, Henry Frankenstein, and the spirit implores him to supply the monster with a good brain instead of the criminal brain that it's been living off of for all these years. Ludwig calls in Dr. Bommer, and Igor tells them that he plans to put Dr. Kettering's brain into the monster's skull. Igor protests and asks Ludwig to use his brain instead, but Ludwig refuses because of Igor's sinister nature, feeling it would be no different than the brain the monster already possesses. Elsa begs Ludwig to stop his experiments, but he chooses to operate on the monster as soon as possible. Igor tells Dr. Bommer that he should not be subordinate to Ludwig and promises to help the disgraced doctor if he agrees to put Igor's brain into the monster instead. The police soon arrive at Ludwig's house searching for the monster, and they find a secret room, but Igor and the monster have fled. The monster abducts Klostine from her home and returns with her in his arm to Ludwig's chateau. The monster conveys his desire for her brain to be placed into his head. But Klostine does not want to lose her brain, and the monster reluctantly gives her to Elsa. Ludwig then performs the surgery, not knowing that Dr. Bommer has replaced Dr. Kettering's brain with Igor's. Back in the village, Herr Hussmann rouses his neighbors by telling them that his daughter has been captured by the monster and that Ludwig is harboring it. Ludwig shows the monster to Eric, but when the monster rises, Ludwig is shocked to discover that it has Igor's voice. The villagers storm the chateau, and the Igor monster decides to have Dr. Bommer fill the house with gas in order to kill them. Ludwig tries to stop them, but the Igor monster repels the attack and mortally wounds Ludwig. The Igor monster then suddenly goes blind, and the wounded Ludwig explains that the blindness is a direct result in the incompatibility between the blood types of Igor and the monster. The Igor monster feels betrayed and then throws Dr. Bommer onto the apparatus, thereby electrocuting him and inadvertently setting fire to the chateau. As our movie ends, the Igor monster becomes trapped in the burning chateau, while Eric and Elsa escape, walking out into the sunrise. I've always thoroughly enjoyed Ghost of Frankenstein, but you really start to get this sense that the monster is beginning to play a backseat role to some of the other characters that are being introduced in these later stories. Ludwig, Dr. Bommer, the carryover arc of Igor, which was begun in Son of Frankenstein, Elsa, there's all these parts now that are becoming more and more prominent in the Frankenstein story, and the Frankenstein monster is becoming a little bit more of a sideline character. And I've always found that kind of sad. I did like the fact that the monster did speak again in this one, which he hadn't done since Bride of Frankenstein. And he spoke in Igor's voice, Bela Lugosi's voice, which I feel made perfect sense considering Igor's brain was transplanted into the monster. And this is something that'll carry over into Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, which we'll get to in a few days. But Bela Lugosi actually takes over the role of the monster in that film as a result of the brain transplant here. But they decided to silence him in that film, making the monster mute again. I think it's because they felt that it was corny hearing Bella's voice come out of the monster's body. But the storyline called for it. It made perfect sense within the context of the story. Now, if you're not paying attention to the context of the story, then yeah, it's like, what the heck? Why does the monster sound like Bela Lugosi? But when you've followed the story so far, and you realize why the monster now has Igor's brain, it makes perfect sense. And I've always enjoyed that facet of it and wished they had continued, much like I said during Son of Frankenstein. In Bride, the monster learns how to speak. By the time they got to Son, he was just grunting and growling again. And he was grunting and growling for the majority of this film until Igor's brain got put inside of him. Then he could speak again, and he had Igor's knowledge. Again, I don't know what the filmmakers were thinking, trying to retcon that come the next film. And again, we'll get more in depth in it there. But it always made sense to me. I'm curious what you guys think about it. Do you guys find Igor's voice coming out of the monster's body to be cheesy or corny? Let me know. When it comes to my rating of this one, it's definitely not 4 or 5-star material, but I love it. I give The Ghost of Frankenstein 3.5 out of 5 stars. A little bit better than middle of the pack there, but not as good as 4, 4.5, 5. I feel that's a fair assessment for the film, especially when you consider, where the movie will go from here. But I don't want to get ahead from ourselves. What do you guys think of The Ghost of Frankenstein? Those of you guys out there that have seen the film, let me know. If you're watching the premiere, leave your thoughts and comments over here. If you're watching on demand later in the day, leave your thoughts and comments down here. Whatever you do, though, when you get out there on social media, let's try to get those hashtags trending. Hashtag Casa D18 Studios, hashtag Renegades Reviews, hashtag Renegade Returns, and of course, the ever popular hashtag Shenanigans. We interrupt this episode of Renegades Reviews for an important announcement about
merchandising.
Merchandising? What's that?
Merchandising. Come, I'll show you. Merchandising, where the real money's made.
Make sure you go over to teespring.com/stores/Jeff Meacham Network for all the t-shirts you see here from the West Coast professor, Jeff Meacham himself. You can get shirts for the Jeff Meacham Network, Talk Wrestling, as well as the red and gold Meachamania shirts. And while you're there, don't forget to get your shirts of the Casa D18 Studios Brotherhood, the Dads on Wrestling shirt, the Renegade J.J. Williams, Statboy Sports Bar, and the hashtag Statboy Approved shirt. Make sure you go over to teespring.com/stores/Jeff Meacham Network and score your shirts today. Make sure you guys tune in tomorrow, right back here on the Casa D18 Studios channel, for another brand new installment of Renegades Reviews, when we return to the Mummy Saga and 1942's The Mummy's Tomb, starring Lon Chaney Jr. taking over the role of Karis for Tom Tyler, Dick Ferran, John Hubbard, Elise Knox, Wallace Ford, Turin Bay, George Zuko, and Glenn Strange. You're not going to want to miss out tomorrow. Right back here on the Casa D18 Studios channel. Right back here on an all-new Renegades Reviews, when we return to the Mummy story and more about Karis and the Princess Anaka. To all my loyal fans and viewers out there tuning in for the premiere that have been leaving your thoughts and comments over here, thank you very much. I greatly appreciate each and every one of you. Likewise, all my loyal fans and viewers out there tuning in a little bit later in the day, watching on demand, leaving your thoughts and comments down here. Thank you very much. I appreciate each and every one of you. I appreciate all my loyal fans and viewers out there tuning in today, joining me, watching along. Thank you very much, and I will see you guys next time.